All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jake's Arm Wrestling Universe. I want to first credit uh, Finland. Let's see. No, that's already wrong. Finland's World. Link in description. For because of the way that he named his YouTube channel, I more quickly thought of a name for my own and chose Universe rather than World. Just because that's more how I think. I have no idea about the world, but I know about the universe. So, I wanted to post some things. I wanted to get my thoughts out there, because it's a lot easier for other people to correct me, and this way, and for more experienced people to reach out to me, because I am a deep thinker, and I'm kind of scientific minded. So I think that this will help me, and maybe it'll even help someone else. You know, me and the 3 people that'll see this. So, I actually made some notes. I thought, well, good grief, what have I learned in arm wrestling? We can't get into too much detail there. Personally, I can be incredibly detailed, but it's not like we're on a table. Whoever's listening to me right now, you're not trying to arm wrestle me. I'm not trying to teach you. So I'll try not to slip into that. The very little that I know, I think I'm coming up on 2 years in the sport, for those of you who are going to wonder, and who probably, if you're even watching, just clicked off, scrolled on. I want to talk a little bit about, well, I'll just read all of these because who knows if I'll even follow this. Retreatment and advancement, the strength in desperation, speed versus power versus usability or utility, the true fundamentals of arm wrestling, the importance of a good team, going over the fact that we only have so much energy. So basically introspection and a reflection on your goals. Emphasis on training for a niche versus, like Devin Larratt, being strong everywhere, which I think is valuable. Define a good practice. I will define what I think a good practice is. What it results in any given day, what it should compound, and the atmosphere that should be there, in my opinion. And it's going to be what I value in a practice. I have very limited experience in the sport. I've been to 1 tournament. I got another in 4 weeks. Communication. So that's going to be in the practice setting, as well as any other setting where you're going to arm wrestle. So if I'm going to arm wrestle a novice, a normal kind of on the school table at school, gonna arm wrestle on a desk kind of person, all side pressure, whatever it is, I always have a strap on me, but I'm going to communicate just as much with them, if not more, than I am going to at least try to. Sometimes we get carried away having a good time. At my normal practices that I frequent. Here I am expounding, and I'm supposed to be listing. Okay, don't disregard the old adages. I find it best, keep them going. There's wisdom in them. The adages of the arm wrestling vocabulary. Measuring progress like a gym bro. Probably not going to happen. Priorities versus pain. And then God made the body to be able to move correctly. It all makes sense. Don't worry. My arguments against side pressure. I know a lot of you guys hear me out. Ryan Bowen, the Australian, I think is running into some of those issues right now. They're catching up with him. But that's, again, my opinion. The importance of leaving ego at the door of the practice room. Okay, read my own writing. Okay, so let's see. Out of reading all those things, since I don't typically do well reading off of a list and expounding as I read there. So I have a couple as far as the strength of desperation. Okay, not retreat. Well, I can't go into that until I say retreat in advance. So much of what I say is vocabulary and terminology that I have garnered from this same platform and from other arm wrestlers before myself, of course. Actual professionals, people that have been sponsored, competed internationally, have 15 or more years of experience. And the way that I think serves best to speak about the two heads or the two types of arm wrestling, that being inside and outside, hook and top roll, basically, is to retreat or to advance, because you're either going backward or forward from the table, as you always start facing it to some degree. When I think about strategic, warlike maneuvers, I don't know anything about that. I've never been in the military. I haven't even played King of the Hill that much, but I know that I think of a hill. And so that'll get you into all those charts and the boards and everything about hill theory, where at the top I think you have the high hook. So that would be a fun one to dive into, but I don't know too much about that yet. Right now I'm just thinking, well, I've been thinking about the setup obviously because I have a tournament coming up. I want to make sure my practices are good quality and applicable, replicatable, something very similar to what the tournament could hold and should be like, since I've been to one. I have noticed from the beginning, my goal was to everyone basically introduced to the sport through Devin in terms of looking online for information on arm wrestling. And I really wanted to be the all-around balanced, even if I was significantly weaker than everyone else, I wanted to be pretty even everywhere. So I wanted to have some elements of danger, some strength, some skills every place, from the flop wrist to the king's move, from the high hook to the side pressure surge in desperation. So when I look at the arm wrestling fundamentals, which, if I can remember them off the top of my head, it's going to be first to cup. Okay, second, roll. No, that's not right. Cup, rise. Rise. Roll, supinate. Now you got to add in there, for health, a down pressure like that. And you got to add in up pressure through the arm and down pressure through the lat, so shoulder and lat. A whole lot of trap in there, nobody talks about. But that's for a young man like myself who doesn't have a lot of muscle mass to begin with and is looking to arm wrestle pain-free. So when you're talking about your goals, priorities versus pain. My priority was to find out if this was a legitimate sport. And I thought I knew that. So when I went to my first tournament, you get to, so you can lose twice. So I got to arm wrestle 3 times. I did pretty well. Got crushed. the second guy I gripped up with, as soon as I grabbed his hand, I knew he'd never arm wrestled. But anyway, the way that I, as a Christian, as a believer in God, I always look at things is, well, how would God expect us to do this? Like my chiropractor will tell me, oh, you need to work on your rotator cuff. You need to work on these different muscle groups. And I was like, okay, so before all this technology, what did God expect us to do so that I wouldn't have to take time out of my day, and I come up with the answer. That's how my mind works. Very Christian guy right here. But I prioritized pain. So many people told. Of course, you got the guys when you go into the legit practices, and no one's paying attention to who's in the room. It's whoever's there, and they yell out the disclaimer. That was the first thing. You can break your arm in this sport. Okay, sounds pretty cool. I understand how that works, and I understand that you can break your arm in a safe position. I eat a lot of vegetables. Just throwing that out there. But I probably should have added one more to the list. That my mentality when I come across vulnerabilities in myself, weaknesses in my character, whatever they may be, I try and strengthen them. So, and I know people that are the contrary, that try and hide them away. That's not very effective. You're harboring your own weakness, which will eventually find its way to the light and rear its ugly head to your demise. But that's long-term thinking. I wanted to make sure, if this is a real sport, like baseball, like tennis, you're going to develop things, weird muscles, whatever they are. Maybe your spine drifts a certain way. Maybe the right side of your body, you're a pitcher, and that's more developed than the other. But you should be able to do that without any chronic pain. This is my theory. This is my belief. And only recently did I learn that Giannis, what's his? I do not remember his. Is it Lepins? Everyone knows Giannis. Him and Coach Ray. Giannis is a physical therapist, a PT. I guarantee that guy has no pain. Guarantee it. Because he understands, the only thing that could be better is if he understood the brain's involvement in those muscles and the firing thereof. But I think he understands the complex relationship of all the muscles in the hand and the wrist and the arm. Probably can name them all. And the tendons, and even the ligaments, and all the structures, things that compound. And he can balance them with training, and you can tell. I mean, he's very lean, so it lends itself to being able to observe all of his hard work. But he seems to be very balanced, although he's primarily an outside puller. And I would guess that he's done a lot of arm wrestling, of course, but also a lot to condition his bones. And so that's one of the first places I started before the tournament, is I wanted to find that place where my body told me, because I was confident that my body would tell me before it would break if I went slow. And this was by myself. This was on my table, not necessarily on the pad to get the right angle. But this was opened up, turned over, which I found was stronger. This was painful. That was painful. Pure internal rotation. Supinated, outside of my body, shoulder far away, just driving with no muscle. Boom. Found it. It actually started at the top of my wrist, worked its way down in the very first ease into it. Very gentle. I only did it for about 4 months. Over the next few weeks, it would graduate toward my elbow, elbow joint. It was so very close, right about where that pronator sticks out on the side, if you can see that. That's about how far down the pain was, a little below that maybe. And then when it got to the elbow, it kind of skipped over the elbow, went right behind the elbow. That was a big one. I definitely wanted to condition that. I spent probably a month or more on just that. And then I actually felt the spiral across the humerus. And that's when I felt that. Didn't increase the pressure, hold. You know all the details. Devin has a very old video on it. Probably 12 or more years old, I would guess. Haven't seen it in a while. But he does it with an actual practice partner, which is difficult for me to do for various reasons. And that kind of leads into the quality of practices and things. But once I had that weakness brought up to the level of the competence of my other muscles, and I knew that I didn't really have much of a bicep to be able to tear. Not that that mattered. You know, you can always tear things. I wasn't worried about a bicep tear. I wasn't worried about, you know, a tendon coming loose or tearing a ligament or having my hand ripped in half. That was not a concern. Those things can heal. I was just concerned about the setback of an arm break. And I didn't want the pain. I didn't want the injury. I didn't want the expense, most of all. So if you can prevent any of those things from happening when they're that kind of a situation, when it's going to put you out, I would do it. Especially when the result of preventing it from happening makes you stronger. Not necessarily tougher. Not always an advocate of that, but stronger. Oh, that's another topic. Sensitivity. That's a big one. Maybe I have to give it its own video. So, when I think about, I already said the fundamentals of arm wrestling. When I think about a good practice, what I'm getting out of the practice, depending on where I'm at in relation to a competition, which I won't even speak to because I have no idea what I'm doing yet on that. It's going to be warm up thoroughly. If the person I'm warming up with is already warm or they're cold, same as me, and they're ready to go hard before I am, I will not ramp up until my body is ready. It's a very distinct feeling. For my arms, because that's what's weak. My hand is strong. My wrist flexion has always been strong. I used to climb trees a lot. My arms are weak. I didn't even use my legs to climb the trees. You know, it was a lot of just kind of partial movement like that. So my arm would immediately feel like, oh, there went 100%. Now I'm down to 80% after the warm-up when I first started. And that was accurate. But what good is that 100% if you can't even get it through the warm-up? It's not really real strength then, is it? It's not applicable yet. And once I was thoroughly warmed up, I would start in the center, and I would just work on losing slowly. Losing slowly. Growl, you know, yell, whatever it is. Do not give up the pin. But I really focused all of my energy in the practice, in the moment that I'm pulling. This is in the strap in my memory right now. I'm in the strap. I'm losing slowly. I am standing there. I don't know what I'm doing with my feet at that point. I'm conscious in my hand. I'm thinking about the technicalities in the hand, in the grip, in the setup. I'm thinking about how I can create space. How I can earn an effective regrip. How I could potentially tire him out, even though he's on my bicep. Think about how I could maneuver myself to get my shoulder in the match, and so on. And so in my mind, I never gave up. This, I think, is important. There's a couple different things that I think that are of value that you should implement in your practices and in your clubs. And that is, I forget the names. I sent them to my club's group chat. But a full dynamic range of motion at a high intensity. So that means your face should be pretty much normal. Unless you're not very well endurance, in which case that would show throughout the duration of that round and of that match. And so you grip up, you pressure up. Let's say their back pressure is superior to mine. Most likely the case. Very likely. They don't pull me off center. They don't go pulling me up, my elbow up off the ground. They don't go, no. They're going to pressure up, and then if they feel that they're superior, there might be a little bit of movement, then we know what's going on. Especially as you get more and more sensitive to these things, and you're more familiar. Then he's going to let me work. So I'm going to go this way toward my winning side. And he's going to, depending on how superior he feels, either give something away to allow me to continue to work, and so that he can consciously work on something he's wanting to improve, or he's going to keep that same pressure relative to what I'm able to contain as I go down to the pin, and then not let me pin. But not just holding there, which there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. You can definitely get strong doing that. But I find it much more useful to do like you see in the practice pulls when neither of them are really trying. That's, I think, a beautiful way to train for strength, because you have constant time under tension. You're really putting in the work on those tendons. At times, the bones for transitions and things are going to be tested and stimulated. And also, it's going to force, by nature of that sparring, I call it, on the table, your communication skills to soar. Because you're going to have to let him know, hey man, I'm just burning out. The pronator's gone. I have no riser. I was trying to, low-handed in the strap. I'm going to have to come in. Well, he's not going to give it to you. Don't let him give it to you. No, I won't say that. What you want him to do, well, first let me say, when he doesn't let you pin, he needs to bring you towards him slowly. This is all much easier if you're very superior. But you can do versions of this at different levels of strength. So, and either way, you just should not let the opponent pin. Unless they're a brand new person, and that is the reward you would give to them for simply doing what you've instructed them to do properly. They do it right, you reward them, goes right to the brain. I won when I did this. Then they start thinking about technique. They're set up. But you don't let them pin. You don't let them win. You figure out a way at the last second to have a little bit of desperation, to get excited about it a little bit. No stakes. No one's gonna say anything. You get pinned by a guy a third your weight. No big deal. It happens. Arm wrestlers are strong. It's like going in the octagon. Any weight, you could potentially get knocked down. The bigger the gap, the less likely the little guy is to get hurt, or to get the win, I should say. But anyway, I digress. So basically what I'm saying is, it should be, I don't know the word, it should be a moderate intensity, meaning none of this, close your hands, are ready, and your friends are refereeing every week. That's the best way to get hurt, to set yourself back, to not really gain any strength and to only work on your speed all the time, so that when you have someone that's stronger than you or that's faster than you, you just don't have anything. Which is the equivalent to having that niche, having that one move, having that high posting top, having that low hand top, and then you don't have anything else. Oh, I got turned in the hook, it's over. That Travis Bajan's like, oh, you beat me to that spot, I just give up. Smart that you gave up, but he's going to beat you to that spot the next time, and so on and so forth. So if you can keep it at a moderate intensity in terms of your arm, your back, your shoulder, your trap, your connectivity, and your mind clear, eyes open, breathe, growl, whatever it is. I have to growl a lot of times when I'm exerting a lot of effort, because when my diaphragm is under pressure, I can't exhale, and I don't want to hold my breath. I'll be purple in a matter of moments. So the only way to exhale would be kind of like someone trying to cough. So instead, I just let my voice drop, and I let out a growl, something ridiculous like that. But it's totally natural. I'm not trying to make it any sort of sound. Whatever it sounds like that's your thing. I don't think you're gonna get much judgment on that. Maybe just some laughs. But breathe, eyes open, think. If you get overwhelmed in a technical battle and you know how to arm wrestle, my tip, personally, for someone who thinks too much, I think about my feet in that moment. When I'm able to think about my feet placement, automatically my brain is conscious of the connection to the ground and to the table through my toe and heel and up to my hip, and then that carries over straight through the core, through that shoulder, typically forward, but either back or forward, either retreating or advancing. And so that's a huge tip right there that I've learned only in the past a month or two, and this is still August 2022. Let's see, what else do we have? So a good team. Let's see, I don't want to say too many obvious things. I think as soon as you start to arm wrestle, you're going to quickly realize there's just some truths. Right? If you have 3 guys that you arm wrestle with, let's say, that's going to be a lot easier for you than 2 guys. But it's going to be a lot more difficult than 8 guys. Depending on how many tables you have. Because if you have 8 guys and you have 3 tables, yeah, you're probably getting out of there in 2 hours if you know what you're doing. Or less. Because ego. I don't know who named it that, but in order for progress to be made, in order for proper arm wrestling to take place in the practice setting, in order for gains to be made relative to performance on the table with other arm wrestlers, which is the best equipment for it, you have to go without ego. There should be really no pinning. There shouldn't. And if there is, that may be just, your group. That's how you are. There shouldn't be. Not in a really good group. But if there is, it shouldn't be for the first hour. You should have at least 30 to 45 minutes. In my estimation, maybe closer to an hour, 35, 40 minutes. But it should be comprehensive. It should be flowing. Like Bruce Lee spoke of his art, Kung Fu. Simplistic, but like water. And it can flow and it can crash. And I think the crashing is simply the flow happening quickly. And firing, as in a ready go, or shooting for that deep hook, or shooting for that press, or hitting far outside for that posting top roll. That's the crash. There's multiple types there, symbolically, but that's what I really wanted for the sport. And I did find a lot of carryover in my own mentality towards it, and it fit. As a combat sport, I looked at the sport of Kung Fu, which I came from very briefly, and I wasn't able to do it because of my concussion. I have a brain injury, and not from that, not from fighting. And I did find it. I found it. I found the technique. I found the strength. I found the mentality. I found the warring, the unrelenting, the well endurance. All of those things I was able to switch over seamlessly from fighting. The only thing I think would apply more, which I never really got to do, is grappling. I arm wrestled a girl probably 2.5 months ago, who did, I can't remember if I think she did BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but she might have done Taekwondo, and then just some rolling around. But either way, her wrist flexion was very strong, and her connective structures were on point. She had a lot of stability, which aided her only in strong side pressure, which is not great. Oh yeah, let's talk about side pressure a little bit. So Dawn Underwood is somebody who crazy side pressure. Don't understand it. Can't get my head around it. I'm sure he's very proud of it. It served him very well. As far as I'm concerned, it was so close with Devin Laird, and I'm a fan of both of them. He was number one. You know, Don, I mean, for anyone to be able to take it that close, it's up to, you know, you could argue it still today, that Don Underwood was the number one undisputed open weight or heavyweight arm wrestler, super heavyweight arm wrestler of the world in, what was it, 2010. But Devin walked away with the victory that day. Anyway, you have guys like Todd Zilla, which I understand. I understand what he's got going on there. What I don't like is when side pressure does not have a lane. You see John Brzenk so many times, especially in his comeback this last year, especially in, which match was it? His match versus Chance Shaw. Congratulations on that win over Tobias, by the way. That was very impressive. So dominant. He's leveled up like 3 times already now since then, and his matches with Ryan Bowen. But anyway,